Hey guys, my name is Pete, and welcome to the channel. You're watching P Life, and today we're going to be talking about this 2020 Macan GTS. A little bit of background about my history with Macans. I've had three currently. I had a 2015 Macan Turbo. I had a 2016 Macan S, and that was traded in for this 2020 Macan GTS, which I just took delivery of probably, I don't know, about a month ago. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a walk around the car. So let's start talking a little bit about the exterior bits that you get with the GTS. So, I think the general theme is that everything basically gets blacked out. So you get the window trim package in gloss black, you get the standard 20 inch Spider wheels with 265 tires in the front and 295 tires in the rear. Move into the front, you get a more aggressive front fascia, which is, I believe, slightly similar to the Turbo. You've got these big open air intakes here with this LED daytime running light. Another nice thing that you get is you get these as standard. You get the LED lights in black with the 4 daytime running lights, which is a really cool looking option actually. And I'll probably run to the car at some point and turn those on so you can appreciate what those look like. Very minor modification I did was I did the side marker that's smoked. That's not an LED version. That's from Suncoast. But yeah, overall, I think it looks pretty aggressive, and especially with this darker night blue metallic color and with the black accents, it gives it a little bit more of a sporty feel. The other nice thing, which I guess got a lot of criticism initially, was this really long light bar that spans the entire back of the car. Some people said it might look like RoboCop. I think when it's smoked out like this and clear, I think that it actually gives the car a very kind of aggressive look, a little bit more subtle than the red as well. And as you can see, as part of the GTS package, you also get the Porsche in black, and you also get the Macan GTS logo as well as the tailpipes in black with this sporty looking rear diffuser here, which actually is, for a truck, it's pretty aggressive. So let's talk a little bit about the heart of this beast and what makes the GTS a little bit special compared to an S or some of the other base models. So I got the hood open right here. This is the new Audi 2.9 liter V6 that's twin turbocharged. It's in the hot V configuration. The turbos kind of sit right inside the engine. This guy makes, in this particular tune, 375 horsepower, which is actually 15 more than the previous generation GTS. The peak power coming in at 5,200 to 6,700 RPM, and it also makes 383 pound-feet of torque, which is 14 pound-feet more than the previous generation. And this comes in at 1,750 to 5,000 RPM. This engine was pretty much directly pilfered from the Audi RS5. It's also used in the Cayenne and Panamera S. It revs to 6,800 RPM. And for the GTS, they've tuned it to produce 17 peak PSI versus 19 PSI in the Turbo, where it makes 434 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. And this is actually a completely different engine from the Macan S. This is only for the GTS and for the Turbo variants. Basically, what Porsche is trying to do with the GTS cars now is they're using detuned versions of the turbo engines, and we've even seen in the GTS 4.0 and the 718 Cayman and Boxster, they're using the same engine as the GT4. It's actually a pretty fast engine, there's very little turbo lag. It's a little bit different design from the last generation. So you've got a single airbox design with the exposed ECU, in the upper side of the engine bay right there. So it's easily accessible for those that are going to be modifying and just want to take it out and mail it in to have it unlocked and flashed. This is actually a completely different airbox design from last time. It looks kind of identical, but basically this cover is a different shape. It's got a square air filter, which I don't know if you can see, and actually this panel right here is kind of clipped onto the air filter, so a little bit more of a pain in the ass to switch out. Actually, Flat Six Motorsports, you can probably contact John from there. They're actually making a high flow air intake kit, which I'm assuming is going to make the car sound a lot better and give it better throttle response. This engine, I believe, is fitted with auto particulate filters, which come out of the downpipes. I don't have a picture of that. You actually have to get the engine kind of dropped out of the car to see it. But, despite that, it actually sounds pretty good. It's really, really fast. Porsche says it does the 0 to 60 in 4.5 with the Sport Chrono package. I think Autotop.nl, and I'll put the link in the description, they got this at 4.35 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour, which is 62 miles an hour. And I believe they ripped a 12.62 quarter mile on the street, which is quite frankly pretty ridiculous. I think at the drag strip, the fastest I was able to get my Macan Turbo, my 2015 Turbo with the full exhaust, I think was like 12.7 at 109, 110 miles an hour or something like that. So this is a lot of power for not the top dog in the lineup. And, look out for people, tuning this engine either with a piggyback harness or with software to, I don't know, probably 500 horsepower. So let's go over some of the performance enhancements that come standard on the GTS, which actually, if you're going to spec the car that way, it makes it pretty good value for money. So the first thing that you'll notice is that the PASM suspension, the air suspension with PASM or adaptive dampers, comes standard on the car. So the car actually sits quite low. It's pretty aggressive. I believe it's 10 millimeters lower than on the Macan Turbo. It's got stiffer anti-roll bars, stiffer springs. Actually, the standard brakes now on the Macan Turbo are these PSCBs, or Porsche surface coated, which they're tungsten carbide brakes. They actually are pretty badass if you ask me. They're 15.4 inches with 6 piston calipers in the front, and they're 14 inches with kind of a floating single piston caliper in the rear. These brakes don't make a lot of dust. I've put 600 miles on this car. There's like no brake dust on the wheels. They stop on a dime and they'll give you 9 cents change. Very consistent braking performance for, I think it's 34.90. This is kind of a no-brainer option if you're going to be driving the car like a hooligan. The other standard thing that you get on the car, actually this is an option, is the sports exhaust. I think they increased the size of the tips. These things are massive. Just kind of for reference, this is the size of my fist. You get these in black as standard on the GTS. There's actually 2 exhaust valves. There's one on the left side and there's one on the right side. I believe this left one is the one that opens and closes with the sport exhaust button, and the one here on the right is computer controlled. And although AWE had put valve plugs and caps that were 3-pin connectors for the previous generation, these are now 4-pin connectors. So somebody please make a valve cap so this car can sound a little bit better. So let's go over the inside of the GTS in a little bit more detail. Pardon the mess. Like I said, this is my wife's car. Just wanted to give you a quick run around. So we have the black interior in here. One of the nice things on the GTS is that you get, I believe, this upper dash in leather. You get 8-way seats as standard. These are actually remarkably comfortable seats. They have the same stitching pattern as the 18-way seats. They're phenomenally bolstered, very, very, very comfortable. Another nice thing in the GTS that comes standard is this black aluminum trim, which runs along the doors, all across the dash. Really, really nice. I think that's one of the nicest options. The two options that I added to this car, because I feel like they were kind of completely necessary for the GTS to, round out the ethos, was this smaller diameter sport steering wheel and the sport chrono package. The sport chrono package actually adds this mode selector dial with the this sport response button, which gives you 20 seconds of kind of ass whipping. Whenever you want it, you can activate it by pressing it once and then deactivate it by pressing it again. And I believe that's pretty much it. Wife wanted a panel roof in the car, and I think for the most part, it comes standard with navigation for this generation. It's got the updated PCM, which is 10.9 inches. It's really, really nice. Very easy to use, pretty fast. The navigation is really great. Also added the Bose sound system because I think it's kind of a no-brainer for the money. It's super powerful and makes the car sound great. But yeah, very, very few options really necessary on this. All right, so let's take her for a little spin. What do we got here? We're not warmed up. One thing I forgot to mention earlier about the Sport Chrono Pack, with the Sport Plus mode, also comes individual mode. So there's an S, an S Plus, and an I on the Manettino dial. You can customize your suspension setting, your exhaust setting, your auto start-stop setting, which I don't know why anybody would really want that on unless they're in a ton of stop-and-go traffic. But thankfully, Porsche gave us this auto start-stop button over here, which when you press it once, you just set it and forget it, and you just don't have to worry about it again, unless you want it on. But that's one of the advantages of having all these buttons on the center console, is that you can just click one thing and forget it. A lot of folks complain that there's too many buttons in the Macan. Personally, I like having all these buttons. I got my traction, suspension, air ride height, off-road button, auto start stop, exhaust, and lane keep assist. I didn't opt for any of the fancy adaptive cruise controls and auto this and that and reconfiguration in this new Audi engine. The thing has a lot of pulling power, and that's I think one of the attributes that surprised me most, particularly compared to the previous gen Macan S, which that car I had a Cobb Flash with flat 6 custom map, and it actually felt really, really fast. But from a handling dynamics perspective and power delivery perspective, it was much more laggy than this engine, and I can't even imagine adding an additional 4 or 5 psi to this thing, and it'll be a complete animal. So with the suspension and the air suspension and the comfort setting, you put it back into regular mode, you can hear the exhaust system quieting down a little bit. In the regular setting, it's remarkably smooth, especially on a bumpy road. It's phenomenal. It's like better than an E-Class Mercedes, in my opinion. There's 2 levels of stiffness. There's the Sport and the Sport Plus. You can do it by adjusting the mode or by pressing this button right here. Interestingly, if you press this button right here, it'll actually remember that setting if you stay in the same mode for the next drive. But yeah, the initial sport setting on the shocks, you still get a little bit of body roll, but it's very composed. The way that I like to drive the car when I'm going on a twisty road is I like to have the car in, assuming that it's adequately paved and not full of potholes and shit like that. So I like to drive the car in the sport setting and with the suspension actually in Sport Plus, because it's still manageable with the air suspension. So that's how I have my individual mode set up. I have it set up with Sport, drivetrain, because you do get a higher clutch pressure when the drivetrain is set to Sport Plus, and you got to kind of kick in the back and really aggressive shifts with the PDK. So I have Sport drivetrain, I have Sport Plus chassis, and I have Sport exhaust on, auto start stop off, and I think that's a really nice combination for the car. It's very agile in that setting, especially on nicely paved roads, and I think that in combination with the brakes is a very compelling and very sporty package, which even though my 2015 Macan Turbo was a great car, I mean, that car really got me hooked on Porsche, to be honest. It drove very well, but this is, I think, one level higher than what the Turbo was like in the previous generation. But yeah, the speeds that you can maintain going through corners, even with cold tires with the all-wheel drive system, is just insane. That's a little bit fast. 5,000 RPMs. Slow it down, have to get a ticket. Drop a cog here. You can hear that turbo whine. Test the brakes. These brakes are cold, and that was just a light press on these things. They stop ridiculously well. It sounds surprisingly good despite having the particulate filters fitted to the car. PDK transmission is fantastic. It's one of my favorite transmissions, even though this originally came out loosely based on the RS6 dual clutch from the previous generation, or the S6. I can't remember which one it was. It was an Audi, but it had a Porsche clutch pack. It's great. It's not like the 911 version, but that'll get the job done. Alright, exit ramp. Alright. So even in fifth gear, like 3,000 RPMs, you have insane pulling power in this car. Here, this is fourth gear, moderate throttle. Just walking people like they're standing still. But yeah, the amount of turbo shove that you get in this car is insane. As soon as you put the pedal to the metal, boost goes to like 15 right away. Yeah, so overall thoughts on the car, you know, value for money is a good description of it. It's got a very sporty feel. It's a great package. It looks more aggressive. It's got a little bit sharper handling, sharper sounding. You don't need a ton of options to kind of make it on par with a lot of other cars, unless you want a lot of the autonomous driving stuff and convenience features, which in my opinion, you know, this isn't, you know, Porsche doesn't do that the best. But from a driving dynamics perspective, I think the Macan is a very compelling package, and the GTS is, you know, in my eyes, one of the best values for money in the class. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you give it a thumbs up. I hope you enjoyed the video and it was informative and useful for you. Talk again soon. Bye.